Once again, apologies. I'll have links in this video to the two other videos that apparently we're gonna have to combine in this way. I don't have video editing programs or anything. I don't even know how to do that, so my apologies. Otherwise, I'd clip them all together, but now I'm gonna have to release them all as 3 because my phone is amazing. We're in the middle of our primary hexagram 31 sensitivity. This would be the third of the videos in the series. And we're reading from James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes about it. And I forgot where I was. Let's see here. The self, the causal body of theosophy, dwells beyond the restrictions of space-time and is preeminently suited for directing the work, since it can see ahead, so to speak, and it knows the effects of all the available choices. The ego, on the other hand, dwells in space-time and is able to take action. By its choices, it makes or breaks the work. The ideal reciprocity between ego and self is a simple and logical division of labor. The self can see ahead but cannot take action or direct action, and the ego can take direct action but cannot see ahead. For the ego to act without direction from the self is to grope blindly in the dark, and the work clearly cannot progress under such circumstances. The superior man, therefore, clears his mind and remains receptive to the will of the self. Obviously, it takes time to learn how to do this properly. In its initial stages, that's what the work is all about. I felt like I read that, but maybe not. The Kabbalion. The majority of people are more or less the slaves of heredity, environment, etc., and manifest very little freedom. They are swayed by the opinions, customs, and thoughts of the outside world, and also by their emotions, feelings, moods, etc. They manifest no mastery worthy of the name. The second and third sentences in the Confucian commentary elicit the sexual symbolism in this hexagram quite clearly. The female trigram is above and the male trigram is below. Their two influences move, respond, and unite with each other. The male is placed below the female. His repression is her satisfaction and brings fulfillment. Blofeld comments on this in a footnote. I doubt if this should be regarded as shedding light upon the ancient Chinese concept of the most acceptable position for intercourse. It is more likely to mean that the girl is able to depend upon the man as a plant depends upon the earth for its nourishment. Symbolism works on many levels, and Blofeld's aborted insight does apply to some of them. It is an established fact that the sentences in question accurately describe tantric sexual techniques practiced in the Orient for millennia. To understand the principles of the work, we must be able to see the obvious as symbolic of an abstraction and vice versa. Sexual polarity is a very tricky and volatile symbol because we are predisposed to confine it to its most literal meaning. The hardest part of symbolic interpretation is to know where in the continuum a specific symbol belongs in any given situation. Without changing lines, this hexagram suggests that you examine your impulses and motivations to act and see if they are truly in accordance with the goals of the work. The figure can sometimes take on the meaning of importuning, to press or urge with frequent or unreasonable requests or troublesome persistence. In other words, you might be importuning the oracle for answers which it is of no mind to give you. It is also significant to note that every line has a more or less negative connotation. These are all very strong warnings to the ego to control its compulsive need to take the initiative, to influence the situation. Calm down. Reality is not what it appears to be. Please allow the self to direct the work. Suggestions for meditation. Compare the concepts in this hexagram with hexagram number 54, propriety, number 53, gradual progress, and number 11, harmony. How do they all deal with the symbol of marriage as an aspect of the work? Compare the first 3 lines with hexagram number 52, keeping still. Initiative is the first hexagram of part 2 of the I Ching. Why do you suppose the book was divided into 2 unequal sections? Why did the division appear between the 30th and 31st hexagrams? An even division would be between the 32nd and 33rd. The I Ching was originally divided into 2 books. Appendix 6 considers the first of these as dealing with the world of nature and the second as dealing with that of man. A quote from Feng Yu Lan in A Short History of Chinese Philosophy. What insights does the alchemical concept of the unus mundus bring to bear on these questions? And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 12, divorcement. Other titles might be standstill, the symbol of closing, stagnation, obstruction, the wife, obstructed, decadence, disjunction, impasse. A quote from D.F. Hook, yin supporting yang, which is wrong, they part company, bad prospects for marriage or partnership. Judgment, leg. Divorcement means there is a lack of communication between the different classes of men. This is unfavorable to the superior man. The great has departed and the inferior has arrived. Blowfold, stagnation, obstruction, caused by evildoers. Although the omen portends ill for the superior man, he must not slacken his righteous persistence. The great and the good decline, the mean approach. When heaven and earth cease to cooperate, no growth is possible and stagnation results. The trigram earth, when in intercourse with heaven, has the auspicious meaning of glad acceptance, but when separated from heaven, it represents weakness and darkness, etc. Lu, stagnation. Stagnation is of no benefit, although not of man's doing. The superior man carries on according to his principles. The great is departing, the small is arriving. Ritzimus/Karcher, obstructing it, in no way people. Not harvesting. Chun-Su, trial. The great going, the small coming. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of being blocked or interfered with. It emphasizes that accepting the hindrances that temporarily interrupt the flow of life and thwart communication is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to accept obstruction. The image, leg. Heaven and earth are estranged, the image of divorcement. The superior man preserves his virtue by withdrawing from evil and refuses both honor and wealth. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes heaven and earth cut off from each other. To conserve his stock of virtue, the superior man withdraws into himself and thus escapes from the evil influences around him. He declines all temptations of honor and riches. To understand why the trigrams for heaven and earth arranged in what seems to be their natural positions have this inauspicious significance, see notes on the preceding hexagram, harmony. Ritzimus/Karcher, heaven, earth not mingling, obstruction. A Chun-Su uses parsimonious actualizing Tao to cast out heaviness. A Chun-Su uses not permitting splendor to use benefits. And to actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire. D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, the unfavorable auspice of divorcement is because heaven and earth are not in communication and all things consequently fail to unite. High and low, superior and inferior do not meet in union, and there are no well-regulated states in the kingdom. The lower trigram consists of magnetic lines and the upper of dynamic lines. Darkness is within, clarity without, weakness within, strength without. The lower trigram represents the advancing inferior men. The upper trigram represents the retreating superior men. Leg. The form of divorcement is the exact opposite of harmony, and much of what has been said in the interpretation of that will apply to this. Divorcement is the hexagram of the 7th month when the process of growth has ended and increasing decay may be expected. The trigram of earth is below and that of heaven is above, and since it is always proper for the lower trigram to take the initiative, how can earth take the place of heaven? As in nature, it is heaven that originates, not earth. And in a state, the upper classes must take the initiative, not the lower. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. The time is out of joint. Decadence waxes and virtue is mocked. The superior man refuses to participate in the prevailing disorder. If the preceding hexagram images the fruitful union of heaven and earth in a holy marriage, this figure shows their divorcement. Divorcement, the act, process, or an instance of separating things closely joined, the state of being separated. To receive this figure without changing lines suggests that you are separated from truth or virtue, or that for the moment at least, the situation at hand affords no possibility of reconciliation. During such conditions, it would be the height of folly to wed oneself to the prevailing disorder. Note, however, that every line but the third shows some kind of effort to reunite that which has been separated. The first shows an alliance of closely related elements bent on serving the work. Line 2 depicts a kind of holding action which is necessary to allow a superior element to prevail. The third line identifies recalcitrant forces which prevent union, and 4 depicts another alliance, a higher octave of its first line correlate. Line 5 images nearly complete reunification, and 6 shows the end of divorcement. These images suggest that although disunion prevails, the energy in the situation is promoting connection. As regards the judgment, a quote from H.G. Creel in Confucius and the Chinese Way, Plato seems to have expressed Confucius's idea perfectly. In the Republic, he makes Socrates say that the true philosopher, finding himself in an evil environment, will not join in the wickedness of his fellows, but neither is he able singly to resist all their fierce natures, and therefore seeing that he would be of no use to the state or to his friends, and reflecting that he would have to throw away his life without doing any good either to himself or others, he holds his peace and goes his own way. He is content if only he can live his own life and be pure from evil or unrighteousness, and depart in peace and goodwill with bright hopes. Next, we will look at our changing lines 3 and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Primary hexagram 31, initiative or influence. Changing line 3. Leg. The third line dynamic shows one moving his thighs and keeping close hold of those whom he follows. Going forward in this way will cause regret. Commentary. Confucius / leg. He moves his thighs. He still doesn't want to rest in his place. His will is set on following others. What he holds in his grasp is low. Wilhelm / Baines. For he cannot keep still. When the will is directed to things that one's followers hold to, this is very base. Blofeld. Sensation in the thighs also denotes restlessness, while being guided by the will of a wife or subordinate involves clinging to what is inferior. Ritzema / Karcher. Truly not abiding indeed. Purpose located in following people. A place to hold on to, the below indeed. Cleary too. Is also not staying put. The aim is in following others. What is clung to is low. Wu. Like his predecessors, he does not want to stay put either. His desire to follow people shows whatever he holds is low. Leg. The attempt to move the thighs is inauspicious. The dynamic third line in a dynamic place wants to run after line 4, which is said here to be the seat of the mind. He exercises his influence with an inferior purpose. What he holds in his grasp is low is understood to refer to the magnetic first and second lines. Following leads the mind to the lines above. Low is understood in the sense of mean. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. A person should refrain from running after those he would like to influence, yielding to the whims of his master and acquiescing to the moods of his own heart. Personal inhibition should constitute the basis for the enjoyment of granted freedom. Wing. You must gain control of yourself. Don't run this way and that on impulse in an attempt to influence others or indulge in your many whims. You will ultimately be humiliated by such unconsidered actions. Set up a few inhibitions for yourself and operate within these limitations while you develop some self-control. Editor, Mr. Legge, a proper Victorian, did not bring out the earthy imagery of this line to its fullest. If we were to receive this image in a dream, it might take the blatantly sexual form of the pelvic thrusting associated with male dogs. When seen in this way, the idea behind this line becomes clear. A quote from Plato in the Timaeus. Hence it is that in men the privy member is disobedient and self-willed, like a creature that will not listen to reason, and because of frenzied appetite, bent upon carrying all before it. In women, again, for the same reason, what is called the matrix or womb, a living creature within them with a desire for childbearing, if it be left unfruitful beyond the due season, is vexed and aggrieved, and wandering throughout the body and blocking the channels of the breath, by forbidding respiration, brings the sufferer to extreme distress and causes all manner of disorders, until at last the eros of the one and the desire of the other bring the pair together, pluck as it were the fruit from the tree, and sow the plowland of the womb with living creatures still unformed and too small to be seen. James Dekorne breaks changing line 3 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, the image suggests a mindless and compulsive urge to influence the situation. And B, you allow yourself to be influenced by base emotions. And then changing line 6. Leg, the sixth line magnetic shows one moving her jaws and tongue. Blowfold, sensation in the jaws and tongue. Wu, he moves his tongue and cheeks. Commentary, Confucius / Leg, she only talks with loquacious mouth. Wilhelm / Baines, he opens his mouth and chatters. Blowfold, this is a way of saying that we open wide our mouths and talk too much. Ritzema / Karcher, the sprouting mouth stimulating indeed. Cleary 2, sensing in the jaws and tongue is speaking a lot. Wu, he likes chatting or chattering. Leg, line 6 is magnetic in a magnetic place at the top of the trigram of frivolity. Her influence by means of speech will only be that of garrulous flattery. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. The man resorts to superficial ways of influencing others through nothing but talk. The results are negligible. Wing, words are only words. Ideas mean little unexecuted. What are you doing? Editor, the divided line at the top of the upper trigram is said to symbolize an open mouth. To talk is to use words, and words are a product of the mental realm. The image is of empty rhetoric, perhaps a too intellectual approach to the situation at hand. This blather can be inner as well as outer, and the line sometimes refers to the excesses of reason and logic, which can blind us to the truths of an expanded awareness. Often in the course of the work, we are severely tested by choices which demand the abandonment of common sense in favor of faith in the self, capital self, to carry us to a realm transcending reason. Such tests are excruciating, and often we fail them because we cannot let go of our faith in logic, words, and common sense. Compare with line 5 of Hexagram 52. A quote from Elizabeth Hayek in Initiation. I gradually form the habit of listening inwardly. Whenever I want to say something, to be sure I have authority to say it. Gradually I learn to keep my mouth shut except when I really have something to say. And I come to recognize two beings in myself, a personal ego, which is often inclined to chatter without control, purely for the sake of communicating and attracting attention to my person, and in the background of my consciousness, a higher self which restrains my personal ego, telling it when and what it is to speak or do, and when it is to remain silent or passive. The important thing is to pay attention and obey the orders of this higher self. Merely to hear its commands is not enough. Everybody does that. James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 down into one possible succinct definition. A, an image of rationalization or intellectual drivel. Your idea is without merit. To get our secret hexagram, which is kind of like the energy influencing things behind the scenes. You take the second, third, and fourth lines of the primary hexagram, and the second, third, and fourth lines of the primary hexagram, boop, 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 and the third, fourth, and fifth of the supporting hexagram. If it was just one hexagram, it would be the second, third, and fifth, and the third, fourth, and fifth of that one hexagram. So broken, solid, solid, and then broken, solid, solid again is Xun Winder Wood above Xun Winder Wood. 57 is the secret hexagram, which we'll get the title from James Dekorne again, since we're trying to be semi-consistent in that matter. 57, jeez, scared me. Wind, progress by flexible obedience. Wind is influencing the situation. And we will read from Benabel Wynn what she has to say about our secret hexagram, Wind, 57. I like her commentary in that she has a lot of background information that she sprinkles in quite frequently. She calls the title of hexagram 57 Xun, use gentle force. The oracle, the power you exert must be a gentle force. The wind is powerful because time is its power. The wind is powerful because time is its power. The wind uses time to accomplish all endeavors. So you too, like the wind, must use time to accomplish your endeavor. Be the unseen influence. The magus casts a spell that will produce an unseen influence. Whether the warrior advances or retreats, both decisions will bode well, so long as the decision is made with conviction. One must delve below the surface, perhaps into the unconscious mind, to understand the situation at hand. Do not change paths time and time again. Open your heart-mind to heaven. You'll be led to the right course of action. Take that path step by step, the same path time and time again. The wind is favorable, small gains to be had. Follow the order that has been predestined. The sage is given a decree. Submit to the direction of the winds. A favorable wind, there are small gains to be had. A journey will be auspicious. Go forth to see the eminent one. There is a need for self-correction. The sage's destiny is to embody the eminent one. The sage cultivates wisdom, learning that the relationship between the eminent one and the people is like that between wind and the grass. The grass bends to the will of the wind. The wind is powerful because time is its power. The wind uses time to accomplish all endeavors. You too, like the wind, must use time to accomplish your endeavor. Shen is one of the earthly branches and is a timing reference. It corresponds with the zodiac sign Monkey. Shen could relate to the 7th lunar month, corresponding approximately with August through September. The ideogram Xun depicts two people sitting side by side on a table. One of these Chinese letters, I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, an ideogram, I think is what it is. Also means to share, but she doesn't say what it translated in English, so I don't know how to read it. Also means to share, to be together. Considering the meaning of the hexagram, the most probable meaning of the word is that of peace talks, negotiation, conference, and accord. Thus, hexagram 57 refers to soft power, shaping people's cultural and political values to shape culture and politics. All right, so we will get a randomly card drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching while we sum the reading up. Our primary hexagram 31 sensitivity shows dewy lake or marsh above Gen Mountain. And kind of the basic idea behind this is you have the firmness and strength of a mountain that is hollowed out at the top to receive. Its whole purpose is kind of like the ego leaving room for the self to speak. And one came out already. And that is the height of what should be done in that situation. 12, obstruction, shows Kun earth below Kuan heaven. And this is the improper arrangement when Kuan heaven is below any other hexagram or trigram rather, it supports it. And so the idea of heaven above earth means that they're separated. So you don't get the kind of power of heaven maybe implanting into Kun earth or something like that, its power. And so that being separated means that there's kind of a disjunction between the ego and the self. And it's kind of an inauspicious time for things to be done in. Changing line 3 had, give me a second, pull this guy out here, Lu Yiming's Taoist Te Ching. 31, changing line 3. Sensing in the thighs, when persistence turns to indulgence, to go on is shameful. Explanation: positive firmness should keep the mind of Tao and not be moved by external things. In the human mentality, positivity is not balanced. Seeing scenes, it gives rise to feelings. This is likened to sensing in the thighs. Sensing in the thighs, one cannot stop in the proper place, giving rise to confusion. According to influences, persistence in keeping the mind of Tao is not single-minded, and where there was the mind of Tao, one again gives rise to the human mentality. To go on to practice the Tao in this way would inevitably bring one humiliation before the wise. This is sensitivity losing the mind of Tao. And changing line 6. Sensing in the jaws and tongue. Explanation: at the end of sensitivity and also at the culmination of joy, following one's desires, working on the external and losing the internal, using clever words and a commanding appearance, all is artificial. This is called sensing in the jaws and tongue. These move whenever the mouth talks or laughs, and when the mouth moves, the mind moves. This is sensitivity using the human mentality, utterly lacking the mind of Tao. So there's a weakness here, and there's an urge to act through the thighs. Let me grab James Dekorne up here, and I need this too. He, I think, does a really good job of summing up each of the changing lines. So let's make sure we're in the right. Yeah, 31. Changing line 3. Let's just get A and B. He has two succinct definitions for changing line 3, A and B. A, the image suggests a mindless and compulsive urge to influence the situation. And B, you allow yourself to be influenced by base emotions. And changing line 6. A, an image of rationalization or intellectual drivel. Your idea is without merit. With what Benabel Wen said, if I can find her book. How did I lose that? Oh. Wind, Xun wind. Hexagram 57 is the secret or the influencing hexagram behind the scenes. And she says about it again. The power you exert must be a gentle force. The wind is powerful because time is its power. The wind uses time to accomplish all endeavors, so you too, like the wind, must use time to accomplish your endeavor. Be the unseen influence. The magus casts a spell that will produce an unseen influence. Whether the warrior advances or retreats, both decisions will bode well so long as the decision is made with conviction. One must delve below the surface, perhaps into the unconscious mind, to understand the situation at hand. Do not change paths time and time again. Open your heart mind to heaven. You'll be led to the right course of action. Take that path, step by step. The same path time and time again. The wind is favorable, small gains to be had. So all of these have the idea behind them pretty much that we're overusing the human mentality and not submitting more to the mind of Tao. With the secret hexagram of wind, the idea is that we should use time to accomplish our means. And so in our changing lines 3 and 6, in 3 there's an urge to act, and in 6 there's kind of like acting through the human mentality and through almost like a desire just to be seen. So through thinking that we can accomplish what we think psychologically or with the human mentality through intellectualism is the right course of action, and trying to influence too early, that is not a good way to do things. We should first, one, know and understand or wait on a direct path to be revealed through the will of the self before taking action, rather than seeking to influence the situation through what we, through the human mentality, think should be the best course. And with the secret hexagram behind things, influencing the situation, this wind, it will take time to develop. And so instead of acting rashly, thinking that there's not time, that we don't have time to do the right thing, that we just need to make a decision. Oftentimes, there's this pinnacle of culminating pressure to act due to kind of like the climax of a situation. And so in those times, those who know that can often influence people in a negative outcome just because of their reactions to something else. So if we don't check ourselves and notice how we might get carried away in a reaction against something to one extreme, we may very well swing to the opposite extreme, not gathering ourselves and waiting on the self for both a good direction and both the timing to act. We should be more what is it called? It's called contemplative, yeah, about the whole situation, and really find out, like in Changing Line 3, there was the kind of idea that you don't actually want what you're urged to do through your thighs, essentially. They're urged to act, but if you got what you were acting on, you wouldn't even want it. So now I believe is a very good time for reflection and for deep inquiry, and to find out in our own internal worlds what's coming up, and to sort through these things and try to see the difference between what's arising from just pure ego illusions and desires and what's actually being influenced by the self. And only after we are sure of this would it be good to act? But in this situation, it seems like currently, right now, is not a good time to act, because likely the action that will take place will be ego-driven, or just a reaction, or over-intellectualized, and likely not even be the result that we would ultimately want if we did get what we were acting for. Too many books stacked there. We will read chapter 52 in the Tao Te Ching. I have 2 copies I'll be reading from. Good God, come on. Starting out, Benjamin Hoff, The Eternal Tao Te Ching, 52. The world's mother. I would call this kind of like almost a pretty close to exact translation, at least from my perspective. It seems like he tried to draw the meaning out and translate things in such a way that brings out really what's being said, even if it's not an exact translation or too poetic of one. He's trying to really, really make it make sense to people in the way that it was intended originally. And the next one I'll read from is probably a more poetic version. The world's mother, all under heaven had an origin, considered as being the world's mother. When you get acquainted with the mother, you will accordingly know her child. When you know her child, you will repeatedly protect the mother. To the end, yourself will not be in danger. Stop your pleasant words, shut your gate. To the end, yourself will not struggle. Start your pleasant words, further your affairs. To the end, yourself will not be saved from wrong. Perceiving the small is called enlightenment. Protecting the soft is called strength. Employing the Great Mother's light and repeatedly returning to her radiance without leaving your troubles behind is said to be merely practicing constancy. And we will also read from Jia Fu Feng in Jane English's Tao Te Ching, 52. The beginning of the universe is the mother of all things. Knowing the mother, one also knows the sons. Knowing the sons, yet remaining in touch with the mother, brings freedom from the fear of death. Keep your mouth shut, guard the senses, and life is ever full. Open your mouth, always be busy, and life is beyond hope. Seeing the small is insight, yielding to force is strength. Using the outer light, return to insight, and in this way be saved from harm. This is learning constancy.